Hey everybody, Mike here, and today I'm going to show you how to make step by step how to make this crazy make automation that creates absolutely stunning blogs that look like this. We have a nice featured image, a nice intro, we have key takeaways, we have YouTube videos, we have internal linking, which is something that most people can't figure out how to do, but these are all internal links. Then we have videos, and as you can see, it's a very complete blog post. And we even have sources at the bottom, pictures. It creates amazing blog posts, and I'm going to walk you through it step by step. All timestamps and links will be in the description. There is some prerequisites for this. You do need a make.com account, and I do want to mention that my referral link below will get you a free pro plan and 10,000 operations for 30 days. If you want to really try Makeout, you'll get 10,000 operations instead of the typical 1,000. So try it out. You will also need a Data for SEO account. Data for SEO is super cheap. When you sign up with my link, you'll get $1. But as you can see here, I've not even spent $1 this month for the last 30 days. Some days I spend 22 cents, 16 cents. This costs nothing. I was doing a bunch of stuff the other day. Cost me, we'll call it 5 cents. After you've spent that $1, you do have to put a minimum of 50 bucks in, but it will last you forever. If you are updating a blog, I'm probably gonna have to make a second video on the updating the blog part. You're gonna need a way to get your sitemap for the internal links. Now in this generator, since the blog I'm using doesn't have a lot of links, you just go to your blog name /sitemap.xml. You go to a page like this, and as you can see, there's only one post that has posts, and then these are all the posts that we're gonna use for internal linking. Now, if your blog is bigger like this one, where I put in the sitemap.xml, and as you can see, there is 5 different post sitemaps, and each one of these has 200 posts on it. That could turn into an issue real fast. So when you're doing the internal linking, you need to set that up. Multiple ways of doing this. I'll leave the links and the templates below for these. One of them is creating a data store in Make, which is really awesome. And then the other one I have here gets all of your posts from your WordPress and then posts them to a Google Sheet. And as you can see, these are making API calls. Instead of this costing, thousands of operations, if you have thousands of posts like this whole Make scenario costs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'll cost 6 operations to do this. And it bulk uploads your entire WordPress into a Google Sheet. So check out the links if you need to do it that method. And so if you're using this one, it'll basically create a Google Sheet like this, where it takes your post IDs, your post titles, it adds some, pending stuff, but then here's every single one of my posts for the blog that I'm helping with. Now you are going to need your open router or any LLM that you want to use. I've updated this so many times, but I have Gemini, Perplexity, Open Router. I would probably recommend Open Router because then you can switch between any model you want. I'll explain why I have certain OpenAI ones in here. There's a reason why I have these, because this is what's worked for me the best. If you don't want to have 17 API keys, you can just use Open Router for everything. Go into Open Router, sign up, you just go to your keys here, and then just create a new key. The thing you will need is Foul AI for pictures. But I also recommend having a backup like Dolly. See, on this side here where we're creating an image, we're using Foul, then I do have Dolly as a backup, because for some reason, this likes to error out maybe 1 out of 20 runs. I will show you how to set up an error one, because I actually do have another foul request right here, but this one almost never errors out. I don't know why this one almost always, like 1 out of 20 runs, this will error. This one, 1 out of 100 will error. I'll show you guys how to make an error fallback like that. Really simple, not hard to do. You will need a WordPress plugin for auto uploading images. What we're doing in here is, say we get the image, we actually set it as a variable where it puts it as an HTML tag, image source, the URL, and it puts it into the media. So you are going to need this WordPress plugin. It's called Auto Upload Images, and it's by Ali Irani. I'm really bad with names. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. Now, the only problem is, though, is if you search for this in the plugins, you can almost never find it. So the easiest way is by searching for this name and just go to add a new plugin, and in the search plugin, just put this name in, and there it is. Okay, and so before we get started, you are going to have to set up a Google Sheet with all of your post and post topic. Now, because this is such an extensive automation, I don't have a way. I mean, there is a way, but it's very complicated, and it adds about 10 more operations to the end of this. So what I do is I just clone it. Like, this is this blog here. You just come over here and hit clone. So for every category that is on your blog, I basically have a scenario for each one. This one is especially just for the rugs. So if we go back here, you'll see that there's just a rug. So you're going to need, you just need to duplicate these. Like I said, you just go to scenario, duplicate, and move on. Now you will need to create a spreadsheet. I have all posts, we have rugs, stained glass, window blinds. So every single one of these has a different, all of the categories on this blog. Create all your keywords. And then what I have is status. I have ready for outline, and then it updates when it gets to the next step. I am using the tone of voice. You can change this to anything. I mean, just ask your favorite AI what tone of voices you can use. You can do a lot with tone of voice. I love conversational, seems to create the best. Then going to create an outline, which I'll show you how that works. And I did have an article summary thing, but I got rid of that. And then I do have it set up that after it finishes the blog, it basically creates your own sitemap for you. So when the next post is made, it'll update this line here. So then we can start doing social media. We can check featured images. Maybe we want to update the post, but you are going to need to create a spreadsheet. I just have a very simple spreadsheet. I have post ID, title, status, tone of voice, outline. And like I said, I don't use the summary anymore. I was, but now I use it in a different way. You're going to need to create that. You're then going to need to set up your Google Sheet, get your connection, get your spreadsheet, the sheet name. And then what I have here is 2 filters. I have one for ready for outline, and the other one's going to be ready for article generation. And then make sure you're only limiting this to one. If we ran this right now, you would see that do Vikings use rugs would come up as the first available module. So as you can see, do Vikings use rugs. After the Google Sheet, you're just going to set up a router. And then on your first router here, you need to set up a filter ready for outline, which is basically using status, which is the ready for outline. And it's equal to, and make sure you set this to text operations. You don't want it to be on daytime or time. This is text. So make sure it says text operations and then ready for outline, and then just hit save. So this first module here is basically our researcher. Now I've done quite a few videos on researcher, and this is why. And right now I am using Gemini. You can use any LLM you want. Gemini seems to give me one of the best outlines that I use. And so I'll just leave this on the screen here so you guys can copy this. But I am using Gemini 2.0 experimental. It's working for me right now. I have the model. So the role is a model. We're doing a text. And then I say you will create a summary of facts and figures and information to include for a blog post. Do not respond with introductory text. Do not number the headings. And then on the next role here, we're using user and then text. And then once again, you can copy and paste all this. Pause the video here. But we're basically taking the title of the blog post, and make each section, here's all your information. Like I said, just pause the video, copy all that. I'm using Open Router for this, and I'm using 3.5 Sonnet. I absolutely love 3.7, but 3.7 kind of overcomplicates things right now still. It's a very advanced model, so I am using 3.5. I have used ChatGPT for this. I mean, once again, don't worry about this part. This doesn't have to be pretty. You're just creating an outline. I just like the way Claude right now is giving me my outlines. So the first thing you want to do, you're going to do a system, and you're just going to go ahead and pause the video so you can write all this down. But we're just creating an article based on the following topics, example. And this next one here is actually quite long. Thought there was a way to make this bigger, but I'll go ahead and I'll show this part. Go ahead, pause, write all that down. And then here's the heading. Go ahead and pause and write all that. And then this is the end. So basically what we're doing is we're creating an article outline for a topic, taking the analysis below. I then having it reorder it using the inverted pyramid structure. There should be a maximum of 6 sections. Now this here can be changed. You can change this to 3 sections. You want 10 sections? Change it to 10. You will get, I have this set up right now where it writes about 750 to 1,000 words per section. Now you're not always going to get 6 sections though, mind you. That depends a lot on your researcher. The researcher over here, this module here, if it only spits out 4 things, then it's only going to do 4 sections. That could probably use a little more finesse. Yeah, we're doing a maximum of 6. And then I do have the tone of voice on here. So I'm just using the if function, which if you come up to this right here, you can see the screw. Click on that. You will see the if function. If you just click on that, it'll pop in everything you need. and then you just put tone of voice, and then, also use these instructions. And if no tone of voice is provided, it'll always use a neutral informative tone. Now, once again, this is completely changeable. You can change that all you want. I then have it said the outline should follow the following format. I do have it say do not start the outline with the title. It loves to do that. And then the analysis is obviously coming from our Google Gemini result here. You can see result is right here. We just pull that in, bring it in there. We're just updating the Google Sheet. So I changed the status to ready for article generation. And then of course for the outline, I'm just pulling in. So on Open Router, you have to go to Choices, Message, and then make sure you are selecting content. Don't select role or refusal. You want content. Now I do have an error filter here. So if Gemini decides to error out, all I have in here is error message exists. That's all you have to set up. And then basically all I did was I started Perplexity, and it's using the same exact prompt that we used in the Gemini one. These are all the same exact prompts. And then even this here, basically you'll just go here, just clone this and put it here, clone that, put it here. You will have to map your article generation to make sure it's picking that one though. See how when you hover over it, that one is, I was going to point at the screen like you guys can see it. Yeah, you just do that. So let me go ahead and show you what an outline looks like. So you can see it comes up here to Gemini, and then here's our response from Gemini. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we only got 5 sections, and we got sources. And if you try to make more, it will then start hallucinating. So be careful with that. Try to keep it simple here. Created our outline and then updated our Google Sheet. Here is our outline, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. This could be probably about a 3,000 word blog if we're lucky. Sometimes we're not. All of our information that we're going to use to give to the next level way, instead of just giving the AI full control over what to write, giving it one keyword, now it actually has an outline to write off of. First section will use all of this information and we'll feed it to the LLM, whichever one you want, and it'll create a blog post based off of that information. That's extremely powerful when it comes to this. So after the outline is done, it does update the status to ready for article generation. If I run this module by itself, it should still say, did Vikings use rugs? And it's ready for article generation. So make sure that's doing that. In the filter here, we're just doing ready for article generation. The status, ready for article generation. Now, I will tell you, I have made this mistake before, that on this first Google Sheets, make sure you're only returning 1. If you put 4, 5, 100 on here, it will go through all of them. So make sure this is a 1. And so after we've set up that filter, I am then setting up variable. So you're just going to go set, I don't know why I have multiple variables, but just set a variable, and you're going to want to make it website URL, and then just the blog name of your blog, whatever your URL is. This is my friend's blog I'm helping with. And then we're going to make a simple URL request using that. And then this is the actual sitemap post. So when you go to your XML sitemap, it should look like this. This is the URL right here. This is what we're adding to the request. So we'll do /WP sitemap post -1 XML. That's what I did here. So I have the website URL. Now, you could just hard code this and save yourself one automation. I think I had other plans for this. That's why I was doing it this way. You could just hard code this to that link, and you're going to want to use a get method and make sure you parse the response. This is a big one. If you don't parse it, this whole thing will break. So if you're running into errors, make sure this is clicked parse. You want it parsed. And then from there, we're basically pulling all the URLs. Now, I know this looks confusing. I will leave it on the screen. Go ahead and pause. Write this exactly how I have it. We're using join and then map, because the data we get from the sitemap link, as you can see here, it goes URL set, URLs, and then LOC, and then there's the actual URL that we want for our sitemap. So what we're doing is joining these together, and we're mapping it based off of this. Now, I call this location, this LOC, all the time. I'm guessing that's what it means. I don't know. But just go ahead and copy it just like this and make sure you put that new line at the end. But what it'll do is it'll pull every single one of your sitemap posts. So every post you have here, it'll pull every single one of them. I'm using the Claude API on this one. just the Anthropic Claude module. This one is I've tried everything else. For some reason, this one works just fine. The other ones don't seem to want to work correctly. I don't know why. I am just using Haiku. You don't need to use a high-end model for this. Pretty much all of them can figure this out. So all I'm telling it to do is pick 6 URLs from the URL list that are most relevant for the following topic, which again, we're using our title. And then I do tell it if no URLs are relevant, pick up to 6 random URLs. We then tell it, here's your URL list. We're then just pulling the URLs from this right here. And then I say only respond with chosen URLs separated by new lines. Now, of course, this is AI. It sometimes freaks out. It's okay if it adds text before or after, which you'll see that it will do. Sometimes in the next step, it won't use that as any relevant data anyway. So once again, go ahead and pause the screen, get a screenshot of that. I am using ChatGPT to create a JSON outline. So what this is going to do is create a JSON file based on the outline that we got here. So it's going to take this and turn it into a JSON file, a structured JSON file. Now, I know Make has other ways of doing this. I have failed constantly. This seems to be the only way I can get this to do it right. ChatGPT seems to be the best one at this. Everybody else seems to have issues. Claude will make up things. So I'm just using 4.0 latest. First message is a developer system. You will convert a text article outline into JSON list of sections. Now, once again, go ahead and pause. And then my user is we're taking the outline from our spreadsheet and converting it into a JSON. And of course, I don't want it to include any of this stuff in the JSON. Copy, paste all this. And here's how we want it set up. This is a big one too, is you will have to go to the advanced functions and you want to make sure this is set to JSON. If you do not set this to JSON, it will break every single time. Well, if you start noticing you're getting data about random stuff, that's probably because this one broke. You need to make sure when you're on this one, you go to advanced options and make sure this is a JSON object. And then you do not want to parse it though, because it's going to give you a JSON. So don't parse the parse, you know, tell it you want a JSON, don't parse it, because then we're going to parse it. So the very next one, we're basically just taking the result from this here where it says create JSON. And this is also why it's nice to have these labeled, because you can see here, it's actually labeled create JSON outline, create JSON outline. And all we're doing is taking the result. As you can see, there is a result here and it's just going to parse it. This next one, once again, this one can be pretty much all of them get this one. You can use any module or any LLM. Once again, I like using ChatGPT for these simple things because ChatGPT seems to give the best response. You know, I've done so much testing with all of these, and this one, I'll just go ahead and slow down for you here. So I'm just using 4.0. Your first message is a developer system. I'll go ahead and pause the screen and write all that down. And then I'm just telling it to pull the sources. Don't want to include HTML. And then the user, and we're basically pulling the original outline. Bottom here, we have sources. So that's all it's going to give you is just these sources without external links. Now you could modify this to include external links, and then your blog post can have external links and internal links. Now the next thing we're doing is setting a variable, and we're just calling it YouTube list. And the reason we're doing this now is because of the way the flow works, we need to set the variable now. So it'll be available later on here and here. Because what we're trying to do is we don't want the same video. I have a different video, different video, different video. But if you don't set this variable, you know, you'll have the same video every single time. All we're doing, just set it as YouTube _ URL _ list. And then our iterator is parsing our JSON. So we take the article here. You're just going to pull this in. It's from this module. And what it's going to do is break up each of those JSON sections into small chunks. So when we go to write the article section, like I said, it's giving it just, you know, when we write the first article, this is what it's getting. It's only going to write an article about that one part. And then the next time it runs through, it's going to write just about this part. This will run 4, 5, 6 times. It'll just keep iterating until every single article is written. Now, this next section here is kind of wordy. I will try to go slow here. I am using Open Router, and I'm using Anthropic Claude again. You can use any LLM you want. You know, I have, you know, go ahead and pause this text here. Now I do have my stupid Grammarly. So I have a random number generator to give me how many H3 headings in the response. You know, you're going to start the section with an H2 for SEO purposes, but then you also want a few H3 tags blended in there. And so all we're doing is using the if random number thing will generate a number from 0.1 to 1. Well, actually 0 to 1, but it will use all the decimal points in between. So I have, if it's greater than 0.5, it's going to use one heading. And if it's less than 0.5, it's going to use two H3 headings. So go ahead and pause and write all that down. And so here's where we're at here. So then I'll scroll down for you. That's as far as okay. So this is the next section. Go ahead and pause that. Write all that down. It's a lot of words, I know. I do have the if again for the tone of voice. And once again, if these are not filled out, you don't need to have the backup thing like I had in the other one. Basically, if nothing shows here, it'll write in its normal voice. So I would recommend setting up a tone of voice. Okay, and so here's the bottom of this. So we'll go to, so here's the next section. So once again, I'm saying don't include the sources section because we're going to put the sources at the end. Use internal linking. So I'm having internal links. And then once again, you can see that we're just getting, so this here is pulling the internal links from this module. And then I have an output of maximum. And then I have another if with random because I want it to be random amounts. You don't want every single one to be the same amount. You know, this way it gives the LLM a little more structure. And now you can change these to whatever you want, but I will tell you when you start getting over the 1,000 words, you start getting hallucinations. Now, Claude is really good where I don't seem to have that issue. Depending on how many words you want in a section, which once again, you know, these are my sections. So as you can see, this is a section. So we have one H2 tag, we have an H3, an H3, an H3. This is how many words it wrote for just this one section. Be mindful of that. You want it to be different, but you know, don't try to overdo it. It might freak out. And then of course for the user, we're just giving it the title. Here's the section title and then the outline, which is all parsed from our iterator. As you can see here, we have the content and the sections. ChatGPT for this next one, it's basically taking the data from the article section and turning it into HTML. Now, I would not recommend having the article section try to convert it to HTML2 because that's almost too much for it. So it's easier just to have another LLM figure it out using ChatGPT because I find it the easiest for this. It's not rewriting anything. All it is taking all the data and making it HTML. So there's the prompt right there. Just go ahead and pause and write all that down. You know, it's basically just saying make sure there's H2, H3s, there's strong tags, replace any markdown, you know, make sure there's no markdown, you know, make sure any URLs. And then for the user, we're just giving it the content. This here is basically just pulling the content from our article writer, which is right here. You just go choices, message, and then it's going to be this right here, content. After HTML, we are then going to set another variable, which is called section media. So just create a variable, just call it section_media. And then we are going to go to a router. Now, the way routers work is route 1 will always go first. Is we're literally going to go 1, 2, 4, 5, and then it's going to come up here. And then it's going to go back through. So this will be, you know, 7 and then 8. It'll just keep bouncing like this until we get all 5 done. And then once all 5 are done, it will then go down this path. So we don't have to set up any filters on this because the way Make works with the routers. Now, after we've set that, we put a router, and then you're going to put another router. And then this is where you get all of your media. So this is YouTube videos and images for your blog post. This one has a video, this one has a video, that one has a video. This one created a picture, that's a video, that's a video. Is in this router, we're using the random number thing again. So you just select random, which is in the number section, this random right here, just drag it in there. Make sure you're selecting numeric operations. So just scroll down to numeric operations and less than. You can have it greater than, whichever one you want to do. And then I have it do 0.5 because once again, it's going to give you a number between 0 and 1, but it's also going to have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, etc. You can decide if you want it less than or greater than. It's just random. That's all we want is random. And so after we set that up, you want to make sure you select this next one here. And this is a big thing that I didn't even know about, was that you can set this route as a fallback. You click yes. That's all you need to put on this filter is yes. So what happens is if this is not less, so say the number's 0.6, it'll then go to your fallback. If you do not put fallback here, it won't do anything. So make sure you set these two up correctly. Go ahead and pause the video, go back to that, check it out. But if we do get our first, we do a data for SEO call, which is the URL you would use. It will be a post method. It will be a raw JSON. And then this is what we're going to send as our JSON file. Go ahead and pause it and write all that down. And what we're doing is the keyword is going to be the section heading, which is this here, which if we were on here, so this is our section heading. This would be our section heading. The truth about Viking rugs would be our section heading. And then of course we want the title. So what it's going to do is search for the truth about Viking rugs and did Vikings use rugs /YouTube. Now, as you can see, we're not using YouTube itself. We're actually searching Google for this because it's actually easier. It gets better results. It gets you better video. So make sure you just copy all that down. And of course, make sure you parse the response. And then the other thing that I can't show you is you want to go do show advanced settings and you want to put your username and password. So after you do all that, you hit save. And now we're going to get the variable YouTube list that we created earlier. And then I'm using ChatGPT again because once again, ChatGPT better for these simple tasks that require a very simple answer. And go ahead and pause the screen and here's all your information that you will need. And so I'm having it take the URL list and then exclude any of the URLs below if they are present. Only respond with a valid URL and no other text. If there's no YouTube URL, then provide a blank response. So every once in a while, you will get a blank response. You can just go in and fix it later. To get our list of URLs, this is what you're going to need to do. You're going to go data task results items. So it's data task results items. You can't see the full returned results that it's giving you, but it's going through and looking for just the YouTube video and it's pulling just the URL. This right here is the URL. It's actually pulling that and making sure that it's a correct URL for what we need. And then we are going to set the variable as the result from ChatGPT, putting the result in. And then we're going to set the YouTube list URL as we're taking this variable and the result. So that way we start having a list of URLs. And that way we don't use the same video over and over again. I know that sounds very confusing, but just set it up like this. It works every time. You never get duplicate videos. Now, when it comes to the fallback route, this will give you an image instead of a video. Once again, I'm using ChatGPT. You can use whatever one you want. And I'm giving it a very simple prompt. Create a detailed image prompt based on the context here. So what it's taking from is the article section that it writes here. It's using that message here. I don't think anything will show up if I look for it, but you can see this one was about Persian rugs. So it's taking that, it's analyzing the content and coming up with an image prompt. Now I did have to, when you start testing this stuff, you start realizing, oh, it had quotation marks. So then I tell it, don't use quotation marks. Do not add anything before or after the prompt. If you use Claude, it'll almost always add something before or after. Claude loves to add things before and after. And then what we're going to do here is create, get a post from Foul AI. Going to use this link. Now you can go into Foul AI and decide what image model you like the best. I mean, Flux Dev to me is the best. It creates amazing images. It's going to be a post method. And then to set up your API key, you're going to do authorize and then your key. Obviously, that'll be blacked out. And then you're going to do body type raw, JSON, and your request is going to be curly braces. You're going to have prompt, and then your result. This here is the result from our image creator, which is this up here. You just drag it in. And then, of course, don't forget parse the response. And then just hit save. And then what we're doing is creating a section media. And so you're going to have to write out image source equals quotation marks, and then you want the URL from this response, which is under data images, pulling this URL to here. Ooh, that was a bad arrow. Make sure you copy it just like this. Go ahead and pause and copy that. Now, I do like to mention that I do have an error come through because once in a while, this does error out for foul. And so I have a simple error. So if an error message exists, it then will go through Dolly. Now, since I used ChatGPT to get the prompt, we used it here. You don't have to create any crazy prompts. Just give it the result. That's all you have to do, and Dolly 3 will create your image. And then this here is basically doing the same thing. Section media. Make sure you copy the right URL. Once again, it'll be under data. Copy this URL and put it into that. And so now after all of this goes through its iterations, now once again, this will depend on how many sections you have. So it could go through 3 times, 6 times. But after all that is done, what it's going to do is we're going to get the variable section media, which were these variables here. So that way we have the images. And then it's going to aggregate everything together. I absolutely love the text aggregator. I think it's one of the best tools. I use it in a lot of my operations now. All you're going to want to do is when you open the text aggregator, you want your source module to be the iterator. So that way it's waiting for all 3, 4, 5, 6 to go through. You want to separate by a new row. You're going to have to do the show advanced options here. And then for your text, you want to put this in, which is the result from this module is that result. And then we're going to put 2 new lines. You want to put a P and then your section media, which is this right here. So what it's doing is pulling the HTML result from that, and then whatever section media was saved in the variable. And it's creating the chunk of your blog. It's creating this right here. So we have all of this, including the picture. So that's what it's pulling. So after that one runs, we are going to make another HTTP request to the same exact data for SEO endpoint, which you can just right click on this and clone this. Bring it down here. We're just going to change the keyword. But what this is for is your initial video. So if I go back to the top of this blog, so that's our featured image. So we're getting this video here, which will be hopefully the best video. But just copy that in there. We're going to do a post method. You want it to be raw, JSON. And then like I said, all we're changing here is the keyword to just the title now. So now it'll look for, did Vikings use rugs-youtube.com, and then it'll try to find the best response. And of course, don't forget to parse the response. And then of course, once again, you will need to go down to show advanced settings and make sure you put in your username and API call and API key. And for data for SEO, go to your data for SEO account, and you want to come over here to API access. When you click on API access, this is where you will find your login and password. It should be your email, and then this here, it's usually for the first 24 hours, it'll be visible. So that's when I would copy it and put it somewhere safe. If not, you can just have it emailed to you. There's that. Go ahead and copy all that. And then after we get that URL, we then want to pull that URL, YouTube URL list that we made from up here. Remember how we created this list? And so now it's going to pull that list. So when we choose this next prompt, which once again, so this is going to choose the video to be featured right here. And I'm using ChatGPT again because once again, I think it's just the easiest to use. And if you notice, it is the same prompt as this one here. So once again, you can just clone this and bring it down to here and just make sure you update the parameters with these parameters because it'll copy those ones up there. So as you can see, when I hover over this, this is the one that we're pulling from. And then when it comes to the data results, we're pulling from this one. So just make sure you update these with the correct modules. You want this one and this one to be based off of this module and this module. Go ahead and pause and write all that down and let me know if you have any questions. Nothing advanced after that. And so after it's picked the video, we are now going to write the intro and key takeaways, which is this part here. So we have a nice intro and we have key takeaways. And sometimes I get this little extra text in here. This is an optional part, but go ahead and pause the video and write this first one down. So this is, I'm using Claude again. So this is a system role. This is all the information you need. And this one's a little more wordy here. Just go ahead and pause it, write all that down. And so what we're doing is after we're telling it what to write, I said, here's the article, only return the introductory / key takeaways. And then I'm feeding it this text. So it's taking the entire article from this here, because this is where all of our article sections will be. And then it's going to create an intro and key sections based off of that. But go ahead and pause that, copy all that. The intro, we're going to humanize it. So this is actually copied. It's from actually the right article one. You'll see do not return, markdown, all this stuff. Once again, I am using 3.5 Sonnet. Go ahead and pause the video. Keep sentences short. So write all that. And then I'll scroll it down. Just go ahead and pause and write all that. You'll see that a lot of this is copied from the other one, so you can just copy that to make it easier. And then here's the end of that. And so do not start with a heading. Remember, every sentence must be in an active voice with short, direct phrasing. So basically what we're trying to do is tell the AI to, hey, stop trying to overanalyze everything. And then of course the content that we're pulling in is from the content we get. This content here is basically what the response is from that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to format in the HTML. So the ones that are actually writing content, you don't want to also have them try to figure out how to HTML format it. So that's why I'm using ChatGPT again. This here is basically just a copy of that. So I am just using 4.0. Go ahead and pause the video, write all that down, or you can copy the other one. Just make sure that this here is actually this module here. Like I said, when you're hovering over it, as you can see, it pulses. So I know I'm pulling the correct one. And now we're going to create our featured image. So after that, we'll add another module for create image prompt. And this is a copy. So this one here is just a copy of that. So that's all I'm doing. So you can just clone that again and bring it into this one. Of course, the only difference though is I'm giving it more information. So I'm using create a detailed prompt based on the content here. So I'm pulling in all the text from this module into here. And then I'm saying analyze the content, do not include. Like I said, it's all the same from this other module up here. Just clone this one, right click, clone, bring it in, and just make sure you change the mapping to map to this here. And then of course we are making another API call to Val. Just use that URL post. You'll need your authorization, and then we're going to do raw JSON, and then the result, as you can see, this here is the result from here. Make sure you do parse the response. Very simple prompt, very simple thing. And then after, we're going to get the URL from the file module, which is under images and URL. That there is this here, which is pulling from that module. So that way we have the link, we have the file. And now the next thing we're going to do is write an SEO excerpt. Now this one I have tried a million times with a million different LLMs, from Claude to Perplexity to, so once again, I'm using ChatGPT because it gives me the most simple, basic result that I want. So we're just going to create an optimal SEO excerpt. Go ahead and pause the video here. Okay. So pause the video and write all that down. That's all that there is on that one. And then all I'm doing is taking the entire article. So I'm pulling this information and this information. So this one is coming from here, and this text again is coming from there. So I'm giving it the entire article to write an SEO excerpt. Of course, I'm telling it needs to be around 150 to 60 characters. It'll still go over sometimes. It'll go under the other times. You know, AI can only do so much. The only thing I try to do is I did add a third message for an assistant, and I said only output less than 145 characters. And then the max tokens I gave it is 500. If you give it 200, you usually won't even get a reply back. So you have to make it like 500. Now, of course, there is make modules that we can use to minimize all this. But once again, you're adding, so this is already a very heavy operation scenario, and adding these other modules, you know, this will turn into 120 operations. So that's why I'm trying to use AI to find the issues and correct itself. Now we're going to set up our WordPress. We're going to create a media item. You make sure you connect your WordPress account. This is how I have this set up. Is I have it set up for the data that pulled from the file here. I think that's why I do it this way, is because I get data instead of a URL, because there's no data from file, but this will actually give me data, binary data, as you can see here. Then what I do for the file name is I do title. So I do the title of the blog, and then I'm pulling the created time from the actual image prompt. So that way it gives it a unique name that can't be copied. Because I don't know if you knew this or not, but if you upload stuff to WordPress and it has the same name, it overrides everything. So if you upload, 1.jpg, and then the next file is 1.jpg, it updates to the newest file. So by creating this timestamp, which if we just go down to create image prompt, I'm basically taking this right here. So that's when that image was created. So it'll give it a unique file name, which will be, did Vikings use rugs? And it would basically add the February 19, 2025, 4:40 p.m. to the end of it. So that way it's a unique file. And then you always want to make sure you add all the metadata to this. I mean, as much as you can add here, the better. I mean, you can change these to anything you want. I mean, like you could make this the SEO Excerpt could be the description. I just have it set all for the title. And then we don't have a post ID yet, so we don't worry, but you always want to upload the image first. And now we are going to create a WordPress module, create a post. What I did here, so if your spreadsheet is not all capitals, which I don't know if you need all capitals, does it really matter? I like my blog post titles where every first word is capitalized. I think it just looks better. I mean, is it necessary? So what I did is just have a start case and then the title, so that way it's always written that way. So if you just go to the A, and you can see start case is right here. And then you just have to drag that in there and put your title in between it. And then that way it'll start every, so the W, the A, the O, the R, the C, everything will be capitalized. The first letter of each one will be capitalized. Whoops. And now this is going to be a little bit confusing here. So in our contact box, we're going to do the result is actually this result, which is basically the key takeaways. And then I don't think you need this new line. I am using P tags, but then this result here is actually choosing the YouTube video. So once again, if I hover over that, you can see how that one is pulsing. So that's going to pull in the YouTube video. We are then going to have another new line. And then this text here, this module here, so we're just pulling the entire article in here. We're separating it again by P's. And then this result here, let's see if I can put this all on one screen without getting too exaggerated. So this result here is the sources at the end, which is coming all the way from this one. So when you're looking for this result, if you just minimize all these until you see extract sources, because there's a lot of stuff in here, you can also scroll down. So there's extract sources. There's the result that we want. So as you can see, this says 8 result, extract sources. This is number 8. There's the result we want. And that will give you the sources at the bottom of your blog here. So these sources right here. And then of course it's a post. And then of course for your excerpt, we're just taking the excerpt from that module. I then have it set as draft because I don't trust it. I always like to look over everything. You are then going to select your category. If you have tags, this is where I would add them. And of course, your author and your featured ID will go there. After that is created, we're actually going to get that post. So we have a new post ID. So all you're going to do is get your post ID from this module, which should be the only thing that returns from that module. Okay, so on this update one, we're basically taking our sheet here is take this here. It's going to give me my post ID and it's going to change this to done with the date that it was done. All this is doing. So as you can see, we're pulling the row number. And if you just scroll all the way to the beginning here, pulling the original row number, which is this right here. We're then giving it the post ID, which is that right there. And then I'm changing this to done and I'm using the now timestamp. Well, I keep calling it the timestamp. I use the now function, so it gives it today's date and time. All you have to do with that one. Final sheet. If you remember way back in the beginning of this video, I showed you how each one of these categories has its own, but then I have all posts. So every time a post is written, it gets put into one. So this is kind of like a sitemap on my, for my Google sheet. So that way I can tell her to go ahead and post Instagram, Reddit, all that stuff. So all we're doing here is giving it the sheet name, the post ID, the title, the date, the link to it. And then I just have Facebook pending. And then I just hard code all these pendings in there so we can do that later. With that monstrosity finished, just go back and watch whatever section you were looking for. I hope that made sense. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you actually want me to do an individual, like how to build from scratch, because that will take even more time than just showing you this. People want me to do an actual build it from scratch. I'll be more than happy to do that. Just let me know in the comments. If not, have fun with this. Let me know how it works for you. If you have any ideas too that you would like to see implemented into this, I'll listen. I will make another video showing how to update posts. I do have an Amazon article writer and a listicle writer that I've made with this same stuff. So those videos are coming soon. So other than that, have a good one. See you again.